Welcome to another episode of the JustUs Podcast. Once again, I'm with Tobs, and we'll be talking about the four subject matters in the form of the Suicide Squad movie, not the reboot or the whatever it's called these days, the original one, the Studio Squad. We'll also be talking about Halo Combat Evolved, Transformers Kingdom War for Cybertron, and X2.
Ooh, hello.
Let's go left to right, as always, with Suicide Squad. Now, I gotta say right off the bat that I remember how we were talking about DC fandom with all these other films that were coming out with positive attributes and being super excited, not being aware of how shitty Warner Brothers still was. And we skipped the Suicide Squad, and I kind of forgot about it.
Yeah, it's not specifically like a movie that you want to remember either.
Yep, Top saw the
I mean,
movie. I did not.
oh, the Suicide Squad. Sorry, it's just identical. Come on, couldn't they just
Yeah,
make a title that was a
yeah.
little bit more with identity? Either way, this Suicide Squad is a good movie. Suicide Squad or Studio Squad is an convoluted, entertaining product, let's say.
I have not seen the Suicide Squad, but I have rewatched the theatrical cut of Suicide Squad, and let me tell you that it definitely is what you described it as. Like, there are things I can enjoy from it more than I can Justice, but that still doesn't mean it's a perfect
Yeah.
experience. Like,
I mean, what happens in Suicide Squad different to Justice League is that those scenes that you watch are the scenes that David Ayer wanted to show, but not in the way he wanted to put them. And like the narrative itself that he wanted to give you throughout the movie is completely lost because the montage itself was like delegated to the trailer stuff, like the people who did the trailer, and it just didn't work at all.
indeed. But one other thing that stuck out to my mind is just how, like, okay, the characters are already great. The story itself is pretty fine. What I find weird is the fact that the marketing makes it look more like something you'd expect from Hot Topic than a sort of heist type movie. It's like I think when we watched Army of the Dead, I think that was what David Ayer was going for with his version of Suicide Squad.
Yeah,
Whereas you look at the
but
way the film was,
apparently with less death.
yeah, with the zombies, but like it's just the quality, like the spirit, the aura of Army of the Dead that I think was the intent for Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
Whereas the theatrical version from the marketing, and hell, even to some extent, the Suicide Squad, or we're to call it Gun Squad, was more like something meant for the Hot Topic kids. Obviously, more so with Studio Squad because you look at the marketing and it's vibrant, it's gaudy and colorful. You know, for all the stuff people say about how Marvel is about rainbows and is too colorful and whatnot, although the films say otherwise when it comes to the way the palettes are done, that's more obvious and definitely screams Warner Brothers trying to be all flashy and trying to appeal to the teenagers.
Yeah, and that's not working because have you seen the numbers?
Yeah,
That's
but
bad.
but like
That's basically the first big flop from DCEU. From the DCEU, it's like that's a flop. People were saying Batman v Superman was a flop back then. Just look at this.
indeed. But back to like Studio Squad. In terms of things that we do like, going back to it, I like them like the characters. You know, there were some certain arcs that were not like shown properly. Like there was apparently going to be a scene that involved a sort of a romance between Deadshot and uh like Harley Quinn, which at first might seem a little odd, but I guess it does make sense given the fact that she would want to stray away from Joker. Like in one way or another, she's
Hmm.
going to come back to him. But at the same time, you can definitely tell that she'd rather move away from him, considering how fucking abusive he is.
Yeah, yeah. That's why I don't agree with when people say this movie is portrayed in a manly way, like in a manscopic way. Like sexist, misogynist, because that's basically the core of a lot of those characters. But you see that deconstructed, and I think that Ayer's first idea was to show that at first, just to maybe give you a trip with Harley in a way that you recognize that there are other ways that you have value, that you're your own person, that you can be your own identity. And it's basically like separating the Joker from Harley. I think that was the first intention of the movie. We don't see that at all, but that was intention.
And of course, there are other character arcs that haven't been fully realized. Like the fact that Killer Croc didn't get much screen time. There were scenes that
Yeah,
were
dude.
removed involving uh, Katana. Of course, a lot of Joker footage has been missing, and people like
Hmm.
destroyed Joker's appearance in Suicide Squad or Studio Squad because they said it didn't really feel like the Joker and whatnot. And personally, these sort of like roles are going for the Joker are going to be different. Like Jack Nicholson's Joker is different from Heath Ledger's, and Jared Leto's going to be different from Joaquin Phoenix. Now you don't have to like it, but the main point is that it's different. And if how different it's going to be, the execution should be handled. And while at first the appearance of Jared Leto's Joker might be off-putting, what is more upsetting is the way he was like missing.
Yeah.
There's so much footage of him that was around, and it kind of makes you wonder why we don't see him as much. I mean, sure he's there, but not as much as they marketed him as. And considering the fact that he is like one of the biggest IPs in DC history, let alone Batman history, not putting him as much into film is kind of a letdown. And it's on par with the way they handled the marketing for, say, the Mandarin from Iron Man 3, or more insulting comparison, the lack of Hulk in Infinity War.
Hmm. Yeah, it was like false marketing. And I mean, everyone was so hyped up about the Joker. I remember those prior months, and it was just disappointing to see the movie and just feel like you got tricked. And I don't know.
To tell you the truth, it's just like yeah, I can agree. There's some nostalgia to be had for watching the movie. Like I remember 2016, back when it was like a simpler time. No pandemic. You didn't have too many responsibilities. I mean, there's shit that was hitting the fan with at least in the U.S. with the garbage, like election fuck shit. But at the very least, the main focus is just like trying to delve into cape shit. And 2016 was definitely the year of cape shit. However positive the experience was, it depends on your mileage. I mean, there are people that ate up, the Civil War and Doctor Strange. There are people that are happy with BVS and Studio Squad. But in retrospect, I definitely think that when setting aside the nostalgia, Studio Squad was kind of like an example of what it's like to be underwhelming overall.
Yeah.
Now, you might be wondering about why we bring up Suicide Squad and not the Suicide Squad. Well, Studio Squad is pretty much turned 5 this year, and we're like demanding Warner Brothers to release the Ayer Cut, which,
Please.
yeah, please, Warner Brothers, Winker Boomers. I'm gonna call you Winker Boomers if you don't bring it out. But like, no, seriously, like if Zack Snyder can get his cut released, why can't the David Ayers? After all, I'm not someone that says that money is like what matters in a movie, but if you're going to care about money, at least say that money is important in terms of how people are going to help you financially. So let's put this in perspective. People say that money doesn't equal quality. That is true. But money does equal people showing interest in the product that you put out. You know how like
Yeah,
big the box office was for the prior DCEU movies before Justice?
yeah, but just in retrospective, they weren't the financial failures. They did money, and they generated a good economies after the movie released with, I don't know, toys or the Halloween times. Do you remember like the boom it had? Um, Costumes like Harley or Joker around those times, right?
Yeah, those were everywhere, and it definitely puts in
Yeah.
perspective the fact that uh, like it's every like people showed attention to it. Cosplayers were around, conventions. It was just wonderful to look back on, especially back when
Hmm.
people were like doing their cosplays on Twitter and say like hashtag Suicide Squad and show their excitement.
Yeah. And now they are mostly ashamed of doing cosplays of anything that it's the property of Warner Brothers because they fucked everything up.
Yep. I mean, we already know for a fact that we've seen stuff like that with like what they do today, as Ray Fisher calls them out, and it's kind of amusing that in times when they get called out by people like Ray, they start putting out stuff like, "Oh, like guys, we have like 100,000 seasons for uh Gotham City Police Department. Oh, we also have like we have a new movie made for HBO Max. Wait, what's a theatrical release for Blue Beetle? Wait, shut up, we're being diverse. We're not. It's kind of sad that that this went back as far as it happened in 2016, all because they wanted to try and make Ayer look bad and make Snyder look bad, and it's stuff that we've seen plenty of times during the 2016-2017 days, just not as frequent because we're still obsessed with the hype. And even when Aquaman was like successful, there are still people that were vocal about Warner Brothers' gross behavior, and it definitely peaked in a like quite a bit with the likes of Shazam. Cooled down a bit
Yeah.
with Joker, albeit there were still some hypocrisies at Warner Brothers, and it was very vocal and hit a low point with Birds of Prey and Wonder Woman 1984.
Hmm. Man, that movie did no good. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but I think Wonder Woman 84 was like the way to convince people that this universe is not worth it anymore. And they fucking did it. It's like we, the public, the audience barely has any hope left for what they are able to evoke and what they're able to adapt. Of course, you have the Suicide Squad or Gun Squad, which is a good movie again, but it just doesn't feel like it will make any difference at all anymore.
Not to mention the fact that Warner Brothers is still trying to get the hype from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. How amusing
Yeah,
is it that when you hear people say "fuck Marvel," then they say "OMG, Gunn is joining DC," we say winning. Are you saying winning because you actually want to get high Rotten Tomato scores, or are you saying winning because you actually gave a fuck about the products?
yeah. There's a completely toxic environment that I am already done with.
Yeah.
But
My loyalty stays with the Decepticons and the Moon Kingdom.
yeah, and Zack Snyder.
And Chris Nolan, and anything that might be less horrific in terms of like Hollywood treatment.
Yeah, but yeah,
But
kind of to close up this, I think that Suicide Squad or Studio Squad it's a movie that you can kind of enjoy if you see through how horrid it is, certain dialogues, because of the way they are connected, and how bad they make Jared Leto look at times. Because again, it doesn't make any sense why they jump from one scene to another. But the characters itself and the core and their essence is there, and you can kind of like that. For example, I loved Captain Boomerang. I love the looks of Killer Croc and Katana, but they barely had any time to, you know, show themselves as they are. I thought Rick Flag was okay, and Amanda Waller was one highlight, but back then it still is. But the characters were well done. That's one thing that you can say about Suicide Squad.
One thing I want to mention: do not confuse the Ayer cut for the director's cut that they put out near the end of 2016.
Yeah, no, fucking assholes. They wanted to make sure that people believed that that mess was made by David when in fact it wasn't. And even though they added certain scenes that were better in terms of quality, it still didn't land. Uh, and it was still sad to see. I remember watching it in 2017 and thinking, yeah, this is slightly better, but it still doesn't feel like a movie.
I think they're trying to capitalize on the way people responded to BVS Ultimate Edition. But the difference was is that
Oh, yeah.
with the Ultimate Edition, it was a more complete version of a trial edition of Batman v Superman, that being the theatrical cut. Whereas the director's cut is no different. It like has better scenes, but is no different from the theatrical cut of itself.
Hmm. Yeah,
And
yeah. I mean, you can even still hear that there were just a couple of scenes that Zack wasn't allowed to show, which isn't a huge deal. But in the case of the Ayer cut, you have like, I don't know. Did you fucking see Twitter 2 days ago or a day ago? It was just filled with a lot of dialogue from the screenplay, and it was just insane how much they left out.
yeah, I think in retrospect, instead of leaving out dialogue from the script, they should have left out all Winker Boomer execs.
Yeah.
But overall, Studio Squad, Suicide Squad, the theatrical cut of Suicide Squad, or David Ayer's not Suicide Squad, whatever you want to call it, it's okay at best. It was definitely, in retrospect, one of the weaker DCEU movies, but there are some things that I do like about it. I just wish we got the Ayer cut instead of whatever compromise shit this is. And let me tell you
Let's hope so.
that it's gonna make me hope that we get something from the Ayer cut. Although I don't have the same level of hopes because, like, how they got the Snyder cut out there kind of surprised me because you had the feeling that they actually gave a fuck about the sort of content that was in there. But like, I don't know who approved of it or when it got approved so quickly within 2020. But like, it just makes me wonder. Like, it makes me want to ask more questions than I am getting answers about the situation, especially considering how infrequent like the connection between Warner Brothers and people like Zach and David is.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't know if there's any interaction between those two anymore. And I think people like Jason Kilar should be kind of looking into this shit, but I doubt it.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. Like, it makes me kind of question the current situation of how Warner Brothers even ties their shoes in the morning. But yeah, hopefully we can get the Air cut. But until then, suck and winker boomers. Next up, we'll be talking about Halo Combat Evolved. Now, we already covered the Xbox is turning 20 this year. Now, the Halo franchise turns 20, as well as the original game itself. So, what is your earliest memory about Halo?
I don't have many memories about Halo, unfortunately. I just remember playing it a couple of times with some friends, and I remember watching some YouTube videos, but not more than that.
Well, the first time I heard about Halo wasn't quite from like the game's release at launch because like at the time I didn't really have much access towards the Xbox consoles since I was like a mostly PS2 and Nintendo kid. That being said, as time went on, I definitely got to delve into more other consoles from my cousins as well as some of my classmates in middle school. Or was it elementary school? I know some kids were like brought over their Mega Bloks Halo figures and even talked about the games uh, back in fifth grade. But like, it definitely shows just how things were back then because like we live in a time period where people talk so much about the uh, the traditional sort of like Amogus or Fast Guy stuff and whatnot.
Yeah.
But it just makes me better appreciate the way we get things back then because things weren't just there for like a little fad. It was mostly about just the overall like quality of the series that was important because the Halo series is fucking glorious.
Look, man, I don't know if I can share too many opinions, but I think that what you just said, it kind of gives me the idea that also, if we compare it back then, yes, of course, most games were commercial and most games wanted to make money. But nowadays, with the two examples you gave, like Among Us or Fall Guys, it's like it has no artistic value. And I know it sounds weird. What? Video games can be art? Yes, it can be art. And back then, they had people who wanted to have their artistic visions portrayed in those games. And nowadays, it's just a way to get money out of kids or teenagers, and that's it. So it's basically it is like very sad. So when you see games like Halo, you're like, this was the original idea, and this is what video games were supposed to be. And what happened?
Yeah. Well, there have been video games with similar ideas that came out before it, like Metroid and Doom, especially with the sort of armored like protagonist with a weapon that fires lasers or pistols and whatnot. Like Halo definitely has an identity of its own. It doesn't rinse and repeat uh, your typical science fiction tropes. It adds to them. I mean, sure, you might think that stuff like the sort of sci-fi visual story as well as the character tropes are like been there, done that. But in a way, like Halo manages to have its own identity from all the other stuff, which each of which has identities of their own. So that way it can like go head to head with stuff like the aforementioned Metroid and Doom franchises, as well as science fiction like Star Wars and Trek, amongst other examples.
Yeah.
I mean, the story itself is pretty much like a war between the UNSC as well as the Covenant, especially considering the fact that they were pretty much going fighting for power, and the fact that you get to play as Spartans, it definitely puts into perspective of how like grungy the war can be. But more importantly, it definitely puts in a new like spin on the sort of third person or first person shooter sort of aspect of gameplay.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it pretty much knows how to balance out like your storytelling as well as the way you play the games, and that's what matters most. A lot of video
Mm-hmm.
games, like I'm mostly perfectly fine with video games if they have like if they mostly focus on the gameplay more than they do the story. But I will say that at times I do feel a little underwhelmed if there's like no actual character. So, like a little video game like Super Mario Odyssey, for example, would be perfectly fine with me because the story itself is okay, but at least you get some sort of like nice little character moments beyond just the mini cutscenes of Peach getting kidnapped and Mario having to go after her. Whereas something like 3D World really has no significant character moments. And
Yeah, man, I agree. If you're gonna make a game, be sure that your gameplay is above average, so you can tell your story. And even if it is like a simplified version, a huge version, I don't know. If you want to tell that story, make sure that people will enjoy the process, because what matters the most in video games is the journey, always.
indeed, there is. And I do believe that Halo does a great job at balancing out because, like, it doesn't go into too much of just the gameplay, so you're left with like the typical sort of shooty nature, which is also thankfully broken up with other sort of techniques, uh, like the like it doesn't just focus on shooting stuff. You have some like stealth missions, especially the part where you have to like hit the heads of the little grunts when you're like sneaking into the mission, which has some very lovely music that plays in the background. Uh, Perchance to Dream is just great, much like the rest of the soundtrack for Halo Combat Evolved, like the Covenant Dance, the theme song, and Walk in the Woods. It's all great stuff. And I don't know if it was made with real instruments or not, or it might have been used like instrumentals or sound fonts, but it's just so good and it also adds off to the vibes of like the theme. Like it has its own influence, its own spirit that screams Halo.
Yeah,
And I like how I went off track with the music, but the main thing about like that story itself is that it's well balanced along with the uh, gameplay, especially
yeah, man.
considering
I get you. Like it's all part of the whole. Like without the music, it wouldn't be Halo, and without that gameplay, it would be Halo, and without the themes, it wouldn't be Halo. It's just what makes a great franchise.
indeed, and but nothing makes it feel like Halo without Master Chief because
Mess.
oh man, you don't even have to be a Halo fan to know just how like badass he is.
Yeah, true.
Like
I
he's got
remember it used to be like who would win between Master Chief and I don't know. Basically every other video game character, and people would say Master Chief.
indeed, and like whether you know him for his appearance, like his voice, his combat skills, or the fact that he has a little AI known as Cortana. Like the guy is basically an icon. Sure, he might be a younger icon than the likes of Mario or Pac-Man, but if you're like someone from the 2010, like the 2000s, that was like that has a sort of traditional, sort of like edgy feel to him, you might like ignore all those other characters. But if you're like me, who's both like love video games overall and wants to learn about other ones beyond the ones I'm more familiar with, I'd accept Master Chief as much as I accept someone like Mario because they're both legendary, if you ask me, in their own rights.
Mm, yeah,
Like Mario is pretty much your happy-go-lucky plumber with a lot of adventures, and Master Chief is the badass protagonist who even stands out from like your traditional sort of like Arnold Schwarzenegger type roles or whatnot because like Master Chief is his own guy.
yeah,
And overall, like it's just great stuff. And even like the graphics for 2001 with the original release are not too shabby. The Xbox and PlayStation 2 definitely have these like very specific aesthetics that definitely screened the early 2000s, and it's just glorious stuff. From the likes of Gran Turismo 3, from my experience at least, Smash Brothers Melee on the GameCube, and Halo Combat Evolved, like those are the epitome of 2001 games, and it's just mwah, delicious.
I mean, even till today, you can admire all of that work.
Yep. Like there's just a specific vibe that those games have that a lot of new stuff tends to lack. Not saying that new stuff is gonna suck just because they don't have those sort of like vibes to them, but they just have like a bit of identity to them. Whereas you look at a lot of AAA titles released these days, and they feel kind of sterile. Sure, not everything is like that. But I just feel like you're watching a movie on a video game when you want to feel like you want to take control.
Yeah.
To the credit of the Halo franchise, even with the upcoming Infinite installment, the games do look cinematic, but they still prioritize that you are the character and you are the player and you're involved with this. You're not just watching the pretty visuals, you're playing in them too.
I see.
Yep. After all, it's a video game, not a movie.
Yeah, no, of course. But when it immerses you in the cinematic type of vibe, then it's doing something good.
And it's especially even like enhanced with Combat Evolved Anniversary and the Master Chief Collection. Both of which do a great job
Yeah.
in recreating stuff, even if there are a few like glitches here and there. But I've seen worse.
Yeah.
Overall, like we've already got ourselves ready for Halo Infinite, which hopefully comes out and hopefully will be a great experience. But there's one thing I can
Oh,
say about the Halo franchise. It's the fact that no matter what, like whether it's from a different company that doesn't have the same sort of like enthusiasm towards it, or if it's going to have to deal with some sort of underwhelming installments, Guardians,
yeah.
its spirit can't go away. And even for non-fans, I think they have quite a lot to praise with the franchise. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, what I admire is how dedicated the fan base is till today. Because I know a lot of friends that still love the Halo franchise a lot. How they know um, how to please their like their audience. They know how to please it, but in a quality wise way. They don't just release game after game. They just stick to the core of it and they keep working. And I kind of like I have a lot of respect for Halo. And I don't know, it's not specifically my favorite franchise of all time or nothing even close, but it's something that I can look at and say, yeah, this is done well.
Indeed. And I just wish that, or I just hope that moving forward from Infinite to whatever else there is in the future, that they keep that sort of spirit going on because you look at the previous, like the subsequent games, 2, 3, and 4, they do a pretty good job overall of keeping things going, especially 3.
Yeah.
You look at the spin off titles, some of them do a good job, others not so much. And then you look at Guardians and you kind of get a bit of a cynical feel to it that kind of makes you feel like you don't want to move on.
Yeah.
But that's a story for another day.
Yeah.
Now, we don't know when we're going to review Halo 2, but we'll leave you this. Master Chief, you mind telling me what you're doing on that ship? Sir, finishing this fight.
Oh, I
Classic
didn't
line.
know Master Chief was arriving to the phone call.
That'd be great. Up next, we'll be talking about Transformers Kingdom War for Cybertron, the third installment of the Netflix series, and, well, if you've seen my thoughts on Siege and Earthrise. You probably know where this is going. So,
Yeah, unfortunately, I already kind of know
shall we start
that
with the
this
positives
isn't gonna
first?
be good.
Okay, let's start with the positives first.
Okay.
Okay. All right. The like some characters are perfectly fine. Like Optimus Primal is perfectly fine in the series. Obviously, I'm not expecting him to be like his 90s counterpart because this is meant to be another take on Beast Wars and G1. They're not in the same universe. Like they're the same incarnation but in a different universe. Kind of like uh Marvel G1 and Sunbow G1 are the same characters but in different parts of the universe. And
Mm.
like Primal, like the Maximals and Predacons were all right. I, for the most part, the voices were okay. Like Optimus Primal in the trailer sounded pretty dumb. Like is like the way he spoke sounded like he has a lisp and has a swollen tongue. And of course, his face sculpt looked pretty bad. Like it didn't really look like the Primal from the toy, which looked closer to the '90s cartoon if you compare the images. But his other voice is perfectly serviceable. Not Gary Chalk, mind you, but the voice actor that they chose from was all right. I liked some of the scenes that involved uh, the comparisons between the way the Maximals and Predacons reacted to meeting the Autobots and Decepticons. The Maximals were trying to prevent stuff like Nemesis Prime and like the future of Cybertron from being messed up, and they know for a fact that the actions of Optimus and Megatron from the past are what become the consequences of their actions. Other
Mm.
positives: the music is not too shabby, and I guess some of the environments that they did for Earth, prehistoric Earth, mind you, are okay. Nothing particularly interesting, but it is a bit of a breath of fresh air amongst all these sort of monotone Cybertronian atmosphere with no variety of color, well, apart
Okay.
from gray and
That's
purple. Oh boy, now we gotta go into the stuff I don't really care much about.
okay. Well, let me just mentally prepare.
Alright.
Done. Let's start. Yes.
Galvatron and Nemesis Prime. More so Nemesis Prime. Now, if you're familiar with Nemesis Prime, he is an evil Optimus. He's usually a clone of Optimus Prime, made by the Decepticons. However, the term of Nemesis Prime has been altered differently for two different franchises: Prime, the TV show, and The Last Night. In Prime, he was a clone made by Mech to make the Autobots look like terrorists. I like that Nemesis Prime. He was controlled by Silas in the show, and he was a great way of sort of making a unique episode on the making the evil looking Optimus Prime without using the Decepticons as influences. Then you have The Last Night, which has Optimus Prime become Nemesis when he was under the mind control of Contessa. His spirit has been broken after the pain he went through from Age of Extinction, and like it was an interesting idea. I just wish we got to see more of it because oh boy was Nemesis Prime missing throughout The Last Night. And I can't wait to rip that movie a new one while praising the original Transformers movie next year because there's a
Hmm.
lot of stuff that we have to talk about when it comes to The Last Night.
Yeah.
But then we get to Nemesis Prime in Kingdom, and he's pretty much an example of Optimus if he were to fall under the influence of the Decepticons. Why though? Because it just doesn't add up quite well since like there's no real sign that he could become that beyond just them saying if you fail this is what you will become. It's like when we look at how Superman in Zack Snyder's Justice League becomes evil when we see him in the flashbacks, the black suit, or like in the prediction or like the visions of Cyborg, with him in the black suit holding Lois when she was killed, as well as both him holding the cowl of Batman in the vision, and from the second Nightmare sequence when he prepares to go up against the remaining members of the Nightmare League.
Hmm. Yeah, you don't exactly get that in Transformers, right?
Nope, because the character of Optimus Prime is pathetic. Like he's pretty much like your he's pretty much like G1 Optimus Prime if he was cucked. Now, when I say cucked, I don't mean cucked as in the way people would describe male characters with when they're interacting with female characters, as we saw with so many people when they called out Captain Marvel. When I say cucked, I mean in the sense that he was pretty much like nerfed badly because all he's trying to
Yeah,
do for the most part is go over stuff like, "Oh, Megatron, forgive me. Like, I forgive you, Megatron. Please, let's be friends. Let's end the war." He doesn't do a damn thing of trying to end the war. He says he does, but then he tries to go for trying to like make Megatron have a change of heart. Does he not know how much destruction Megatron has caused? For all the complaints that people have with movie Optimus, at least he got the job done, even if people got upset at him for it, especially in universe when they were criticizing him for his destructive nature. The main point is that he and the Autobots are trying to end the war. They don't want Earth to become the same as Cybertron. Here, though,
hmm.
a version of G1 Optimus Prime is just a wimp. And the sad thing is that he wasn't even like that in regular G1. Like, he was less aggressive, sure, but he knew how to fight and he knew how to keep his ground against Megatron unless Megatron overpowered him somehow.
Yeah. So sorry that I interrupt, but
No,
a, a constant that I see between the three reviews that you did already is that it seems like it is incoherent plenty of times, the story that they are telling and the characters that they are showing. Is
definitely
that
is.
true?
Yeah, it definitely is. Like for the Beast Wars characters, it's okay. It's just that some of the voices are not that great, which we'll get to in a moment. But oh boy, like just the character of Optimus Prime was sad, and I get they want to make it emotional, but it's like it's less like the damn it's less like the sort of broken spirit of Batfleck and more like uh the broken lightsaber of Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi. That's how pathetic Optimus is in the War for Cybertron trilogy.
That sucks.
If this was Orion Pax, who was just made leader of the Autobots and had to practice becoming a great leader over time, I can buy that. Hell, another War for Cybertron that being the video games did a much better job of a more inexperienced Optimus. Transformers Animated did an even better job by having Optimus be a sort of rookie who runs a maintenance crew, and he and his group of Autobots end up saving the world plenty of times. He was not as experienced as his other counterparts, but he did a great job nonetheless. And hell, let's even bring in Optimus Primal, because he's not as experienced as his ancestor, yet he's done so much in saving not just Earth, but the future of Earth, specifically by saving the Autobots from the Ark from being destroyed, and even saving his home race, Cybertron, from Megatron's takeover, as we mentioned in Beast Machines.
So yeah, it's like one of the weakest iterations that you've seen.
Indeed. Like, he's pretty much the example of that sort of like dog meme where you have the big dog represented by almost every other Optimus in existence. They're big, they're powerful, they're strong, they know how to win. And they even show like certain moments of them having self doubt, but still making it in the end. Then you have the little dog represented by War for Cybertron Optimus. Wah, wah, wah. They
Dude, they should have made that the soundtrack of the whole show, apparently.
pretty much because we're about to delve into more shit that sucks. Okay, Unicron. He doesn't really show up that much. They make him as this big threat, but he's even less he's even like less like worth giving a fuck about than in the '86 movie. At least in that movie, they start off with him destroying a planet just to show off how deadly he is. I don't like that we get a shitty origin of him in the cartoon, but at least what we do end up having is a very solid sort of introduction towards the character. He's this big threat. And it definitely puts into perspective as to how brilliant the 86 movie was, even if I was kind of harsh at it back then. Now I have a bigger appreciation for it, which I'll get to next month if I review it. And as for the other voices, well, you already know my thoughts on the G1 characters, so let's talk about the other voices of the characters. Cheetor sounds okay. Rhinox sounds okay. Rat Trap sounds perfectly fine, even if he does sound like a bit of a budget Scott McNeil. Tigertron, meh. Black Arachnia, not as like distinct as her 90s counterpart, but serviceable. Airazor, generic. And we also have stuff like fucking Scorponok, who sounds meh, not quite as like doofusy as his. I don't want to use that word because he didn't sound like much of an idiot, but he wasn't a bright like tool in the tool shed as his 90s counterpart. And we also have, oh boy, we're going to delve into the negative stuff. Well, Dinobot's voice. His voice sounds incorrect. Like, it's a more of like a gruff guy, like, type of voice, which isn't bad, but he doesn't really have that sort of like Shakespearean feel to him compared to his 90s counterpart, which was very distinct. Whereas here, I think the voice of Dinobot sounds more like Tigertron than Tigertron's does.
Hmm.
But nothing, and I mean nothing, screams lousy voice directing more than Megatron's. Beast Wars Megatron's. Good lord, what were they thinking?
There was no outstanding acting at all. It was just all average or below average.
And this is just shit. Now,
Or shit.
do forgive my impressions, but Beast Wars Megatron sounded very theatrical, very charismatic, and overall very influential. Yes. Whereas Kingdom Beast Megatron was like, I'm the biggest simp of Megatron there ever is. Why, here's a golden disc, my ancestor. Can we play fetch when we stop the Optimuses, please? That was stupid!
Oh, damn.
How do you mess up the voice? Like, okay, it's one thing to not have the voice actors. You don't want to hire Peter Cullen? Go ahead. You don't want to hire Gary Chalk? Fine. You don't want to hire anyone else for their voice work? Sure, whatever. But if you're going to go for a cheaper voice cast, make them sound good. Unless these are going to be entirely different interpretations, don't go for shit like this. Oh,
Yeah.
it's already bad when you hear lousy voice acting for characters like Optimus in the first chapter of Siege with his infamous "Oh, we are not the Decepticons" sort of stupid line, and even ill-fitting voices that don't belong, like the sort of evil scientist voice that we get with Jetfire, or the monotone nature of Bumblebee. Like, that's already bad enough, but when you go for even more iconic voices, especially those in the Beast era, you get garbage like Kingdom Beast Megatron.
Dude, that's just sad.
Yeah, and like I would be forgiving of it if they didn't have the original voice actors, but at least have them sound good. Like Cyberverse, they don't have any of the original voice actors whatsoever. In fact, like that was the main point because it was a more of a budgetary show. They were going for a non-union route to save money. But you know what worked? The fact that the voice direction had distinct character audio or voices from one another. Like
Huh.
Optimus sounded different from Megatron, Bumblebee sounded different from someone like Ratchet, and even though the voices aren't particularly like my favorite ones, they have identity from one another. Hell, Optimus in Cyberverse sounds better than he did in the War for Cybertron trilogy. Like people complain that he was sounded like a Peter Cullen knockoff in Cyberverse, but at least he sounds fine for what he's doing. Here, he sounds more like a Peter Cullen knockoff. It's like if you're not going to hire Peter Cullen, like why bother trying to impersonate him?
Yeah, I don't get that either when that happens in voice acting. Like I would rather have them making their own personality kind of fit into the character more than just imitating, or I don't know.
Yeah, you don't have to exactly do the voices. You don't exactly have to hire them, but at least make your voices sound good. And
Yeah.
I'm thinking about Doctor Smooth. Like he's done so many voices of the G1 characters from his fan made videos, but they sound great because A, he like practices his lines. B, he practices sounding like the characters, and C, he's not being like overrun by some shitty voice director.
Yeah.
And well, as far as visuals are concerned, well, I think I already mentioned that they're okay, but let's be honest, the beast modes look kind of generic and don't quite have the same sort of distinct feel that the Beast Wars CGI designs have, which yeah, well, that's what I'm expecting. The Kingdom toys aren't exactly like the cartoons either in terms of beast mode, so not a big complaint. What is a big complaint is the fact that they hype up the appearance of uh, the Autobots arc turning into a Transformer.
And
Now,
it was underwhelming.
yeah, like they just I remember showing up for like a few scenes in its robot mode, and then it just turns back into its ship mode. It's like, why bother? Why bother showing that off?
Yeah, I don't even, I wouldn't even know the reason, if it is outside or inside the narrative. I don't fucking know.
It's probably a budget narrative because, well, they don't really want to show off big robots. I mean, hell, they don't even show Unicron in his like robot mode because they only show him in his like shape mode, but in his like planet mode. But not like it matters because G1 fans are gonna eat it up anyhow.
Yeah.
Good grief, this shit sucks, and
It
it's
sounds like it sucks. Yeah.
and it doesn't stop there because we get to the final battle and it's meh. Like it's just meh. It's like Optimus and Galvatron and Nemesis and Bumblebee going after everyone's fighting over the Allspark. The Autobots and Decepticons are doomed until all the other characters show up. But it's like trying to be like Avengers Endgame or the legendary battle from Power Rangers Super Mega Force. But it's like who cares? Like no one's gonna really give a crap about these characters teaming up unless you're a diehard fan. Like I'm a diehard fan of Transformers, and I didn't care about it because the past like stuff has been lame as hell.
Like there was no emotional build up for you to even care at all. Even though like the characters, you just loved them, but they couldn't even evoke you that in the show. So that's super lame. I mean, and you're talking about like the big final battle. They weren't able to like transmit anything.
Yeah, it's pretty much just oh great, we have characters standing next to each other. This is gonna be so dynamic, but it's not. In any other fiction, a big crossover like this would be fun and exciting, but because Kingdom focuses on being a dull series with no real sort of excitement to it, because they prioritize the dark and gritty feel to it without giving anything that would be important extra layers, you get one of the most underwhelming pieces of media. And it's just bleh. Like if this like a crossover with other characters mixed together, and if the writing was good, I wouldn't mind it so much because they at least focus on making sure that you get a very satisfying moment. Whereas here, I think the main idea was just, oh hey, we have the G1 characters and the Beast Wars characters standing next to each other. This will be great, right? Except it sadly isn't. I like seeing the G1 and Beast Wars characters together. I like displaying them because it was great to see two different generations of the main universe in one shot. The closest to that was Beast Wars, and as someone that learned a lot about Transformers from watching the older stuff during 2011, when I was like obsessed with learning about the history, Something like Kingdom would excite me, but it does not for the fact that it was just a lousy series.
Hmm.
Oh, and this was something I didn't think about much, but after watching Dr. Lockdown's review on it, when he reviewed uh, Kingdom, there was one pathetic scene that has like the fallen Autobots and the Decepticons, like their ghosts pretty much making Nemesis Prime and Galvatron dissolve, and that was just so lame. Like he lost his shit over the fact that they were pretty much they just showed up out of nowhere, despite the fact that half of them, especially Jetfire and Elita One, had a mini arc that was involving them trying to regain control of Cybertron while the Decepticons were on the planet. And that was abruptly ended in Earthrise, and they just show up in Kingdom because, hey, let's make it so dynamic, and it's just blah. And it's even made worse when Elita One tells Optimus, "Oh, it's okay, Optimus. Like this was meant to work after all." She didn't say, "I'm sorry for doubting you." She didn't say, "This may have caused a lot of stuff, but at least you were able to fix it nonetheless." She just says, "Oh, you were right all along. Now I hope we can still like kiss each other even though I'm a ghost." Like that's not how you put off an ending. That's just putting in one of the worst ways of ending off something that you didn't even conclude properly.
Damn.
And blah blah blah. Autobots and Decepticons stand together in a statue. Megatron refuses to shake Prime's hand, even though Optimus is still begging for like their friendship to be made. It's like we already know how pathetic Optimus is in the series,
Yeah.
and they try to make some sort of like big sort of like cliffhanger of sorts by having Black Arachnia and Starscream talk about uh, Unicron, how he's still out there, and the series ends with Unicron preparing to reformat Galvatron and Nemesis Prime, but it's like, no, no, thank you. I don't want to see more of that garbage. I'm done. Can we move on to the next series, please?
Man, that all sounds like a disaster. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
I don't care how much fan service they put into the series. I don't care if people were like super happy to see Black Arachnia and Ares share a kiss. None of that justifies the garbage that is the War for Cybertron trilogy as a whole. If they were to try and make a conclusion to it with another series, I don't want to watch it because we've already seen how bad this series has been, and I don't want to see any more of it. I'm tired of them trying to make these sort of dark and gritty shows that only appeal to like the nostalgia types because I've seen better from different like the different parts of Transformers. Like Transformers Prime is a great series because it doesn't just try to be dark and gritty. It knows how to be a perfect balance of everything, on top of it being well written, wonderfully animated, and having a great voice cast.
Yeah, I think if you're already like not incorporating new young audiences and you just want to um, like redirect the old fans, then they are more critical than ever. They are basically adults or like teenagers, let's say. So you should give them a product that at least tries to do something. And you keep saying that a lot of things don't make sense. Make sure it makes sense.
Exactly.
I, I don't know, man. It's kind of sad.
Yeah. But like, if there's one thing I can say about another piece of G1 media, it's that I feel sorry for talking shit about the G1 cartoon and the '86 movie in the past episodes if I have. They're, in my opinion, they're still overrated and they get a lot more praise than they really need. But I can at least forgive them for things like the fact that they weren't aware of how important the characters were when they killed off the old cast, as ridiculous as it was. I at least appreciate the animation at times. Some of the episodes are fun to watch. The voice cast, while some characters are repetitive from one another in terms of appearances and tropes, at least have identity. Like Optimus Prime sounds iconic. Megatron sounds iconic. Starscream sounds different from everyone else. They're not like trying to sound like tough guys who are very dull and want to do something else. They all have identity to them. And that's something I like about Transformers as a whole is that when you have voices that are distinct from one another. And War for Cybertron's voice acting reminds me so much of why I don't like modern day voices. Not so much from animation, but mostly in anime, which they try to market War for Cybertron as. A lot of modern day anime just sounds so monotone and like sterile.
Yeah,
And
we're not living the best times of that.
exactly, like voices don't sound distinct from one another. Characters just don't have much identity to them. And when they try to talk, it's there's no like real distinction for them. They try to make it so faithful to the Japanese audio. It's like they just think, look at the weebs and think, like, come on, you guys are so fucking picky. Just practice speaking Japanese or like just read the subtitles and shut the fuck up already. I'm lucky to
True.
have not encountered that with the Sailor Moon community because I was wanting to say at one point that listening to the Viz dub of Sailor Moon after being so used to the Deke dub is like listening to the War for Cybertron trilogy voice actors redub the dialogue of the G1 show, and I do not want that to happen. I don't like it when they put G1 sounds in modern stuff as if it wasn't G1 enough already, but it's even worse when you have something that sounds awful mixed in with something that's perfectly fine the way it is.
Yeah.
Uh, and in case you guys are wondering, no, this doesn't mean that I hate the toy line. The toys are great. The War for Cybertron trilogy is like one of my favorite toy lines of late, and it just makes me happy that I can probably have more fun making my own scenes or recreating stuff from superior media than I would recreating scenes from the awfulness of the War for Cybertron trilogy. But
Oh, yeah. You can do the like a fanfic, but better probably.
yeah, I can probably do a better job than most of these guys. Hell, any Transformers fan can do a better job than the War for Cybertron writers. I don't know where we're gonna get after this. Like, I have more excitement for whatever we're gonna get with Nickelodeon and Rise of the Beasts more than I am what we're getting for the older fans because, like, we don't know what's gonna happen after Kingdom ends for the Generations line. But if we get a series that involves Armada Starscream and Prime Optimus and G1, Elita 1 in the same show with the terrible voice acting and weak animation, then I'm not going to watch it because I've already given up hope, and I'm already going to give them a strike three if we get anything like this again. Prime Wars sucked. War for Cybertron trilogy sucks, and I have a bad feeling that the next sort of like older fan series will suck as well. At least we'll get good toys out of it, but too bad the shows associated with said toys will suck.
Yeah.
And finally, we'll be ending off this segment with a little bit more of a positive experience. That being X2 X Men United.
Fortunately, we are gonna brighten up a bit the podcast.
Yep. After the very positive experience with Halo, the somewhat mixed experience with Studio Squad, and a very angry experience with Kingdom, let's start off very positively once again with X2. Now, it's no secret that we're more used to like the older comic book films. I mean, sure, there's a lot to be excited about for the new stuff, but I just miss when we used to have more excitement without social media, without all the like posts of the shitty memes, without being bombarded by the crappy forums. The main point was just being excited for the films. Like, yeah, Spider Man 2, X Men, Fantastic Four, Batman.
Like it just felt more special, and when it hit the features, you knew it would be like a whole event, not like one more movie of one more shit of one more thing in one more label of I don't know what. It's like It used to be its own thing, and you would go and enjoy it the most.
And more importantly, what made it super exciting was the fact that it had so many characters that were not just there for like the fan service, but mostly just to like make a good story. Like you have some characters that are in the background, but at least you have individuals that were prominent. Like I enjoyed seeing, Wolverine. I enjoyed seeing Magneto, Cyclops, Storm, Jean Grey. Like the main point was more than just the like the fan service and Easter eggs. The main point is just making a strong film. And X2 is one of the best films out there, especially the franchise it's from.
Yeah, it's something that I really want to rewatch because I think that, of course, the first one had all this internal tension and political drama, but here it kind of goes with that and more kind of storylines that make the X-Men just a great group of superheroes that you want to see what's going on and how the hell it's all gonna unveil at the end. I have a lot of love for that original group.
Yeah, especially with the story itself. Like you get more of like a traditional sort of comic book film feel to it when it comes to the way they made the story, where Stryker wants to kill the mutants by reverse engineering a device similar to Cerebro, and it was great to see like a tense but still dynamic sort of team up between the X Men and the Brotherhood of Mutants because like it was more than just crossovers and what was more than just like fan services. Like you already mentioned, that's the spirit that mattered more, and X2 delivers on that brilliantly.
Hmm.
And in a time period where people are always like, "Oh, I want the next Batman movie to be inspired by Year One or The Long Halloween," or "Oh, can a Superman movie be inspired by All Star Superman?" Hey, now you're an All Star. You're now you're a rock star. But like looking back now, I can at least appreciate by the fact that you know I didn't immediately think of X2 as a an adaptation of a story. I like the fact that it feels original, even if it takes elements from stuff like Return of Weapon X and God Loves, Man Kills, because those don't feel like adaptations. It still feels like its own identity,
Yeah.
and it's even better when you're already focused on like how characters interact with each other, because the Brotherhood of Mutants is definitely different from the X Men. I like when you have these characters bond with each other in ways that are like more substantial and memorable than the crap that Instagram and Tumblr fan girls do with their memes.
Yeah. I mean, say what you want to say about Brian Singer, but when he arrived into the comic book genre, he really changed a lot of things, and he was able to communicate very well what the characters' intentions were in the comic books. So I don't know. I just kind of miss that.
Yeah, like it was great to look in stuff like the opening involving Nightcrawler attacking the president of the United States before he retreats after getting shot. It was great to see like Wolverine learn about his past, and it was even nice to see like a little mini story involving Jean Grey struggling to have her own powers in control before we get into the bigger roles involving stuff like Wolverine trying to help some of the younger mutants escape while everyone else is like under attack. And it's all great to see, more than just a crossover, but it's also great to see the sort of mini stories and even seeing moments with other characters as well, like with Mystique and Colossus. Even new ones like Iceman get quite a bit of attention as well.
Hmm.
And it's stuff like this that like you don't really get that often. I mean, obviously people are more interested in stuff like the memes and the Rotten Tomatoes score. And it just makes me appreciate the older stuff because the main point was just delivering a damn good movie. And we definitely get that, especially when it comes to the way characters interacted as well as the story itself. Now, I will say one thing that does kind of suck is the fact that Last Stand kind of doesn't really follow up with the great stuff that X2 introduced, not effectively, at least.
No.
But I can live peace with it because certain X-Men movies in recent times haven't done as well as The Last Stand.
Yeah, so basically, they shouldn't have envied that much the last stand if afterwards you were gonna kind of repeat the same steps.
Indeed. But that being said, X2 delivers greatly because it manages to improve on what we got with the original film. More action, a stronger character development, and more memorable stuff in it. I mean, I especially liked how chilling it was to see a someone out of character yet still important scene of Xavier warning the president about the way Stryker's been trying to kill mutants, as well as them being told that they must work together in order to like make peace because the mutants are still hated amongst humanity. They either because
Yeah.
they envy their powers or they might think it's a link to evolution and whatnot, but like the X-Men definitely are trying to make peace between themselves and the human race. And compared to a lot of media out there that tries to be like political and vocal about fighting against bigotry, X2 does a X2 just does a fucking great job.
Yeah.
Can't believe I really slipped on my own words. But that's what happens when you get so excited to talk about a good movie like this.
Dude, and also whenever the new characters or the old ones had to show off their superpowers, it always felt so unique each time. Like, and the direction they took, it was just so attractive. Yeah, in that kind of, yeah, like you said, early 2000s vibe. You just love to see that.
Exactly. The early 2000s vibe was definitely like there, especially when it came to like the little music that was playing when Wolverine was driving away.
Yeah, dude. The only director who still gives me those kind of vibes seriously is Zack Snyder with certain scenes, not all of them, but he kind of gives that heart to the superheroes that used to be common back then.
Yeah. Nowadays, it's pretty much just like an obsession over Rotten Tomato scores and memes by the TikTokers. Sad. Not everything's like that though, obviously, but I still see it in certain parts of the fandoms I'm in.
Yeah.
But overall, X2 is just great, and I was happy with X Men 1, and I was even happier with X2. Next year, we'll try and talk about X Men The Last Stand, and I'm going to be honest, I won't be as negative in that one because it gets overhated, but I don't think it's 100% perfect either. We'll delve into that next year.
Yeah, and I think that for that time, I will need to do a whole rewatch of that trilogy because I'm very interested about how much uh, I can bring new into those movies that like with my mentality nowadays and what I may or may not think anymore.
And don't forget, we also have to think about other stuff that would come afterwards. Oh boy, maybe I should probably also review X Men Origins Wolverine just to be in good measure because, well, said good
Oh,
measure is going to require us to be prepared for the Wolverine. And fuck, we'll just do a Wolverine trilogy overview next year. Why not?
sure, why not?
But yeah, that concludes this episode. Next time you'll see us will be about our anniversary before we delve into a more normal episode on September. Let's hope we can get more
Ooh,
than two people on the anniversary.
yeah, I hope so. But either way, it will be fun.
But thanks for watching
And
this episode, guys and gals.
it will be fun and it will be touching.
Indeed. But until
We will
then,
remember. that left us in the way. But
Yeah. But until then, we'll see you all next time. Take care, everybody.
good